I used to think the quiet was the safest sound in the world, until the night I heard laughter coming from inside the fog. Growing up, I dreamed of being a big city cop. I imagined chasing gang members through back alleys, kicking down doors, saving people at the last possible second. Shows like Forensic Files and NYPD Blue filled my head with all the adrenaline and heroism a young kid could want. But fate dumped me somewhere very different. Instead of policing the streets of Brooklyn or Chicago, I ended up in a nowhere town in the rural Midwest, flat land, empty fields, quiet roads where you can see a dog run away for 3 days straight. A place where nothing happened. Or at least, that's what I thought. I won't name the town. I can't. Not after what happened. My superiors have already warned me about talking, and I'm probably risking my job, or worse, just by typing this. But after that night, I don't know where else to turn. It started 1 week ago. Doug, my senior partner, and I were on routine patrol. Doug is the kind of officer who's been in the job so long he's practically absorbed into the squad car. 30 years on the force, calm as a lake, always with a story to tell. That night he was talking about the time he fought off a hungry cougar while helping an injured camper. That was normal for us, his stories, my polite disbelief, the slow drive through dark rural roads. Then we turned into the valley. There's a remote stretch of our jurisdiction, a cracked road dipping between two foothills where barely anyone ever goes. We rounded the bend, expecting the usual emptiness. Instead, our headlights swept over a Jeep parked awkwardly on the shoulder, driver's door wide open. "Who the hell?" Doug muttered. We parked, stepped out, and approached the Jeep. The air felt wrong immediately, heavy somehow, like a storm was building even though the sky was clear. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck bristle. The inside of the Jeep was empty. No keys. No wallet. No driver. Doug leaned in, and jerked back violently. His hand flew to his revolver. "Call dispatch. Now." His voice was sharper than I'd ever heard it. I didn't ask questions, I radioed for backup, 2 units and an ambulance. As soon as I clipped the radio back to my vest, Doug shouted. "Freeze." I snapped up toward where his flashlight was aimed, and saw someone standing in the fog that had quietly settled over the valley floor. A teenage boy. Black hoodie. Jeans. Barely older than 17. And I recognized him immediately. "Johnny." I whispered. Doug took a cautious step forward. "Johnny, is that you?" Johnny's eyes reflected the flashlight in a strange, glassy way. Empty. Hollow. Almost mournful. He swallowed hard. "I have to do it, Doug." I saw something in his hand, a walkie-talkie. A detonator. My blood froze. Doug lifted his free hand. "Johnny, put it down. Whatever's going on, we can." "There's no time," Johnny said, voice cracking. "I'm sorry." He lifted the detonator. Doug fired. The shot echoed through the valley, rolling off the foothills like thunder. Johnny dropped backward, collapsing into the fog as the walkie-talkie skittered across the asphalt. I ran to cuff him. He was alive, barely conscious, clutching his bleeding shoulder, whispering something I didn't understand. "You shouldn't have come here," he murmured. "It's trying to open." "What? What's trying to?" But he passed out. Backup arrived. Paramedics took Johnny away. The bomb squad dismantled what turned out to be nearly 30 pounds of homemade explosives in the Jeep. But even after the bomb was neutralized, even after Johnny was stable in the hospital, something didn't sit right. Doug refused to let anyone near the Jeep until a special unit from a neighboring county arrived. No one understood why he was so shaken. Hours later, when the Jeep was gone, Doug, myself, and 2 other officers followed Johnny's tracks into the valley. That's when we found it. A stone slab built into the side of a hill, not rubble, not a cave-in. A perfect, seamless stone door sealing a narrow tunnel entrance. The air around it buzzed with a static pressure that made my teeth vibrate. My arms tingled. My skin prickled. It felt like something behind the stone was breathing. We stood there longer than we should have, all silently feeling the same wrongness. Then, without another word, we left. That night, Johnny woke up. Doug and I went to question him. His father tried to stop us, but Johnny insisted. The first thing he said was, "Did you see the tunnel?" My stomach twisted. "We saw it. But it's sealed." "What were you planning to do?" Johnny's breathing quickened. "It opens, officer. Every few days. You have to destroy it." Doug scoffed. "Destroy what? A damn rock?" Johnny shook his head violently. "No. You don't understand. Something's in there. Something terrible. It got inside my head when I got too close. I heard it whispering. Begging. Laughing." His eyes filled with tears. "And if you heard the laughter, it means it knows you now." My heart dropped into my stomach. Because he was right. I had heard laughter. Back in that fog-drenched valley. Just a faint echo at first. A flutter of breath in the air. I had ignored it, thought it was the wind. But now I could still hear it, faint, distant, like an echo from behind a wall. Johnny's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "It's waking up, officer. And it wants out." I didn't sleep that night. Johnny's words replayed in my head over and over again. "If you heard the laughter, it knows you now." He was a troubled kid, sure, arrests for drinking, weed, petty stuff. But he was never a liar. And the look in his eyes when he spoke, that wasn't fear of being arrested. It was the fear of something he couldn't escape.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
By midnight, I'd read his medical file twice, paced my apartment 3 dozen times, and flinched at every small noise outside. My girlfriend, Samantha, slept soundly on the couch, unaware of anything that had happened. She didn't know about the explosion, the tunnel, the fog, or the strange static hum in that valley. But something told me that she shouldn't know. Not yet. I kept staring at the clock, 1:12 a.m. 1:57 a.m. 2:33 a.m. Johnny said the tunnel opens every few days. He said the next opening would be 3 a.m. Doug wanted me to drop it. Kids fried on drugs or trauma, he kept saying. But I couldn't ignore the heaviness in my chest, the feeling that something was crawling unseen along the edges of reality. Something pressing against that stone door. So at 2:40 a.m., I put on my uniform. I didn't wake Samantha. I grabbed my keys, my flashlight, and my sidearm, then stepped into the cold night air. By 2:51 a.m., I was parked at the entrance to the valley, fog already crawling across the ground like it had been waiting for me. 2 officers, Hastings and Gunnarsson, were already there, sipping coffee in their cruiser. Ugh with this. "I just want to see it," I said. "If nothing happens, we go home." Gunnarsson grunted. "And if something does?" Hastings rolled his window down. "You're actually going through?" I didn't answer. We walked together into the ravine. None of us spoke. The fog got thicker. The air got heavier. The static sensation returned, prickling my skin. Hastings muttered that it felt like walking into a live electrical wire. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., a grinding, thunderous rumble shook the valley. Rock against rock. Heavy. Slow. Like a mountain shifting in its sleep. The noise echoed so loudly it felt like it was inside my skull. "What the hell was that?" Gunnarsson whispered. We followed the ravine, just a few yards from where the sealed entrance should be. Fog wrapped around us like wet cotton. The temperature dropped sharply, and my breath clouded out in front of me. Then reality twisted. It hit me like a migraine made of lightning. A sudden, overwhelming rush, like my brain had been forcibly lifted out of my skull and splattered against the sky. The world warped. The rocks stretched and shrank. The trees swayed in impossible motions. The ground pulsed like something living. Little streaks of light trailed behind every movement. My stomach churned. My vision crawled. Behind me, Hastings began to giggle. At first it was a snicker. Then it grew into manic laughter, high, hysterical, childlike. What's so funny?" Gunnarsson stammered, stumbling backward. Hastings spun around, eyes wild, pupils blown so wide they were nearly black. "It's, ha ha ha, it's beautiful," he gasped. "Can't you see it? It's beautiful." Gunnarsson grabbed him by the arm. "Snap out of it, Hastings." But Hastings only laughed harder, tears streaming down his cheeks. And then I saw the tunnel. Or what used to be the tunnel. The stone slab was gone, split down the middle like a cracked egg. And behind it yawned a darkness so thick it felt like a physical presence pressing outward. Something moved inside. Not a person. Not an animal. Something with too many shapes, all shifting, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. I glimpsed an outline, tall, contorted, limbs bending at angles that defied sense. A gleam of something like eyes. But they weren't eyes. They were impressions of eyes. Suggestions. Like the tunnel was trying to imitate a face and failing. A whisper rippled through the fog. Or maybe it was laughter. A thin, warbling giggle, inhuman, layered, echoing inside my skull. Hastings staggered toward the entrance, smiling as if hypnotized. "Hastings!" I screamed. But he kept walking, drawn to it like gravity. Gunnarsson ran after him, but the closer he got to the tunnel, the more distorted he became, stumbling like he was drunk, his arms swinging in slow-motion trails of light. I tried to run forward. But the world twisted sideways. My legs stopped responding. My head felt like someone had cracked it open and poured fire inside. Hastings disappeared into the fog. He never screamed. Only laughed. Laughed until the sound cut off abruptly. The fog drifted. The darkness swallowed everything. And I ran. I don't remember making the choice. I don't remember turning. I only remember the overwhelming instinct that said run or die. Gunnarsson emerged behind me, gasping, stumbling. His face was white as chalk, and he collapsed near the patrol cars, shaking uncontrollably. I kept hearing the laughter. Not behind me, not ahead, but inside my skull. When we got back to the station, I tried to explain. Doug stared at me like I'd grown horns, but he knew something was wrong. Especially when Gunnarsson quit on the spot, ripping off his badge and throwing it onto the station floor. "We're not going back there," he said before storming out. Doug ordered a search party anyway. By sunrise, Hastings was officially declared missing. And I couldn't shake the feeling that we hadn't lost him. He had been taken. Taken by whatever that thing was inside the tunnel. And it wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The fog thickened as I drove, swallowing the headlights until they felt like two dying candles pushing against a wall of milk. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Dispatch hadn't called back. The mayor wasn't home. And the thing on the body cam, that smile, burned in the back of my skull like an afterimage left by staring at the sun. I slowed the cruiser when someone, stepped into the road. A girl. Maybe 9 years old. Barefoot. Wearing pajamas that looked 3 sizes too large, the sleeves dragging on the asphalt. Her hair hung in wet ropes down her shoulders. At first I thought she was lost. Then she lifted her head, and I saw her eyes. Pure black. Not the kind of black you get from dilation or shadow. No. These weren't eyes at all, just two glossy pits reflecting the flashing red and blue from my light bar. I slammed the brakes. The cruiser skidded sideways. For a second, we just stared at each other through the windshield. Then her mouth twitched. Not a smile. Not quite. More like she was trying to remember how one worked. Kid. I opened the door slowly. You okay? Her head jerked, one fast, unnatural snap, like a puppet string was tugged from above. Then she turned and walked into the tree line. Not ran. Walked. As if she knew I'd follow. Against every instinct screaming don't, I followed her. The beam of my flashlight cut through the fog, illuminating branches that looked like skeletal fingers reaching for my coat. The woods behind the Daniels farmhouse were old, twisted oaks that grew too close together, their roots crawling out of the ground like veins. I kept seeing flashes of white fabric ahead of me as the girl moved deeper. Stop. I just want to help. She didn't stop. I stumbled into a small clearing. The fog thinned here, and moonlight spilled across the forest floor. That's when I realized the girl was gone. Completely vanished. No footprints. No rustling. Nothing but a strange sound in the air, soft, rhythmic. Drip, drip, drip. I swung the flashlight around. And nearly gagged. A deer hung upside down from a tree branch, slit open clean from throat to belly. But the disturbing part wasn't the gore, it was the pattern carved into its torso. A perfect circle, with 8 lines radiating outward like a sun. Or, no. Not a sun. A wheel. The same symbol carved into Hank's shed 2 nights ago. The same one teenagers spray-painted under the old bridge last summer. The same one folks in town refused to talk about. The Wheel of Ash. Of course, that's just what kids called it. Adults had another name. They whispered it like a curse whenever someone went missing. The Turning. A cold wind slipped across my neck. I spun around. The little girl stood at the edge of the clearing, motionless. Her head tilted so far to the side it almost touched her shoulder. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. Her voice wasn't a child's voice. It was layered, 3, maybe 4 tones speaking at once like a chorus of whispers stacked behind her words. My hand flew to my holster. I'm taking you somewhere safe, all right? Just stay where you are. Her mouth opened a little. A line of black fluid dripped out, running down her chin, then her neck, then soaking into her pajamas like ink. They're coming, she whispered. They know you see. Then she stepped backward, and sank straight into the fog. Gone again. I stumbled forward, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I called out to her. I searched the tree line. Nothing. It was like she melted into the woods. I don't know how long I wandered before I found the road again. The fog had lifted slightly, and my cruiser's roof lights glowed through the trees like a distant beacon. I almost collapsed into the driver's seat. I radioed dispatch again. Central, this is Unit 3. I need immediate backup by Route 7. I've encountered a missing child, possible possession or mental distress. And I found a ritual killing of an animal. Please respond. Nothing. Just that same faint static. Except. Under the static, a voice whispered, you shouldn't have followed her. I dropped the radio like it burned. Every instinct told me to drive back to the station. But something else tugged at me, something worse. Because for a split second, in the rearview mirror, I saw something in the road behind me. A figure. Tall. Thin. Standing perfectly still. Watching. I didn't wait. I floored the accelerator, tires screaming, and tore down the road back toward town. By the time I reached Main Street, the fog had cleared completely. The town looked normal again. People were walking. Lights were on. The world seemed unchanged. Except for one thing.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
Every single person I passed, every car, every pedestrian, every late-night dog walker, turned to look at me. All at once. And they all smiled the same smile I saw on the body cam. Wide. Wrong. Too many teeth. I slammed the cruiser to a stop in front of the station. Because standing on the steps, illuminated by the glowing police sign, was Sheriff Beckett. Except it wasn't him. His eyes were black. His smile stretched impossibly wide. And he opened his arms as if welcoming me home. "Officer Hale," he said in that same layered whisper the girl used. "It's your turn." My first instinct was to reach for my gun. My second was to run. But my legs refused to choose a side, they just locked stiff beneath me like I'd suddenly forgotten how to move. Sheriff Beckett, or whatever was wearing him, stood on the station steps smiling that impossible smile. "Hale," he said again in that chorus voice, "come here." His lips barely moved. It was as though something was speaking through him from a hollow cavity deeper inside. I managed to take one step back. Just one. It felt like moving through cement. His head tilted the same way the little girl's had, too far, too fast, as if his neck wasn't made of vertebrae anymore. "You saw her," he whispered. "You followed the little caller. That means the wheel has marked you." The little caller. My mind flashed back to the girl's black eyes, the way she dissolved into fog, the ink dripping from her mouth. My stomach twisted. "I don't know what you are," I said, voice cracking, "but you're not Beckett." Something spasmed beneath his skin, something pushing up from underneath his ribs like a hand pressing against fabric from inside a bag. "Names don't matter anymore," he said, still smiling. "Only turns matter." That word again. The turning. The wheel. All pieces of a puzzle I didn't understand. The sheriff, the thing, took one step toward me. That broke the trance. I dove into the cruiser, slammed the door, and locked it. His hand slapped the window instantly, before I'd even fully sat down, as though he already knew exactly what I'd do. His palm pressed, fingers splayed impossibly wide, each nail tapping against the glass like insect legs. Tap. 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 One tap for each finger. One tap for each turn. I reversed hard, tires screaming, and sped down Main Street. The sheriff's figure shrank in the rearview mirror until the fog swallowed him. I didn't stop driving until I reached Route 12, the long, empty stretch that led out of Ashbrook. The "Leaving Town" sign appeared ahead of me. Except. The words were wrong. Instead of "You are now leaving Ashbrook," the sign read. "You can't leave. You're in the middle of it." I blinked. Looked again. The message flickered, like a glitching screen. Then the original text returned. My breath fogged the glass. "I'm losing my mind," I whispered. But I knew the truth. The town wasn't letting me go. I turned the cruiser around. I didn't want to, but where else was I going to run? The sheriff couldn't be everywhere. There had to be someone normal left. Someone who'd seen what was happening and wasn't part of it yet. I thought of one person. Father Glenn. He ran the old church on Maple Street, a small, fading building with more chipped paint than congregation members. But he was the only person in town who ever spoke about evil without sounding ironic. I pulled up behind the church, killed the engine, and slipped inside the back entrance. The place was dark except for the candles burning near the altar. Father Glenn sat alone at the front pew, hands clasped tight, head bowed so low I couldn't see his face. "Father?" My voice echoed. He didn't respond. I walked down the aisle, my boots thumping softly on the wooden floorboards. A strange humming sound filled the air, quiet, almost undetectable, like the building itself was breathing. "Father Glenn," I said again, "it's Hale. I need help." He lifted his head slowly. I felt relief flood through me, until he turned to face me fully. His eyes were normal. Thank God. But his expression was wrecked. Utterly broken. You shouldn't have followed her, he whispered, those same words again. None of this would have begun if you hadn't seen the caller. What is she? I demanded. He shook his head. Not a she. Not anymore. The callers are what's left of the children this town used to sacrifice. His voice cracked on that word, sacrifice. My blood ran cold. The wheel, he continued, is old. Older than Ashbrook. People thought if they gave it what it wanted, it would keep the town safe. Prosperous. Hidden. Hidden from what? The candles flickered violently, as though something had passed through the room. From them, the priest whispered. From the ones that turn reality inside out. The ones who speak through the dead. The ones who mark the living. The church lights suddenly cut out. All the candles extinguished at once. We were thrown into pure darkness. Father? I drew my flashlight, its beam slicing through the black. He stood now, rising slowly, painfully, like he was pulling himself out of mud. His eyes were fixed on the stained glass window above the altar. Moonlight bled through it in strange patterns, making the colors ripple unnaturally. They're here, Father Glenn whispered. A crack formed across the stained glass, thin at first, then branching, spiderwebbing until the entire window trembled. Then it shattered inward. I hit the ground, arms over my head. Shards rained around us like ice. Something stepped through the broken frame. Not a person. A silhouette tall enough to bend at the neck just to enter. Its limbs wrong. Its movements fluid but jerky at the same time, like a marionette being controlled by someone who'd learned the motions only hours ago. The priest didn't scream. He just whispered, "It's begun." The figure stepped fully into the church. And its face. God. Its face. It wore the sheriff's smile. But it wasn't the sheriff. It wasn't even human. The candles relit around us, one by one, as though the creature's arrival ignited them. Their light flickered across the twisted thing standing before us. "Hail," it whispered in the same layered voice, "your turn is next." I turned to run. The priest grabbed my arm. "Don't go outside," he hissed. "Not until you understand what's coming." "I don't care, I'm not dying in here." "It's not death they want," he shouted. "It's worse." The creature took a step forward. Floorboards creaked. Something shifted above us in the rafters. I didn't wait to see what it was. I ripped free of the priest's grip and sprinted toward the back exit. Behind me, I heard Father Glenn scream. Then all the lights blew out. And the layered voices whispered in unison. The wheel turns. I hit the church's back door so hard it nearly tore off the hinges. Cold night air slapped my face, thick with mist that hadn't been there a minute ago. The fog rolled out across the yard like a living thing, curling around gravestones, coiling up the fence posts, rising like breath from an unseen mouth beneath the earth. Behind me, the church shook. Not metaphorically. Physically. The walls groaned. Wood splintered. Something inside was tearing it apart as easily as someone crushing a soda can. "Father Glenn," I turned to go back in. The sound that came from inside froze me mid-step. It wasn't a scream anymore. It was many. Layered voices crying from a single throat. Some deep. Some childlike. Some shrill. Some barely audible. A chorus of agony woven into one impossible sound. No human could make that noise. I backed away slowly, heart punching my ribs from the inside. The stained glass shards on the ground vibrated, tinkling softly like chimes. Then the church door burst outward. I didn't wait to see if anything came through. I bolted for the cruiser, gravel skidding under my boots. My breath fogged thick as smoke. The fog itself thickened around me as if trying to push me back toward the church. Not tonight, I muttered, yanking the cruiser door open. Something grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, gun drawn. But there was no creature. No black-eyed child. No smiling sheriff. Just Deputy Collins. Except he wasn't wearing his uniform correctly. The shirt was buttoned wrong, off by 2 holes. His badge was pinned crookedly, like someone who'd only seen a picture of a cop's uniform had tried to recreate it. His eyes fluttered, unfocused, pupils too wide. "H. Hale," he croaked. You weren't supposed to see them." My finger tightened on the trigger. "Collins, are you hurt? What happened inside the station?" He blinked, head lolling slightly to one side. "Inside, the station?" He repeated it like he was tasting the words for the first time. I stepped back. "Who are you?" I asked quietly. He smiled. No teeth. No stretch. Just a small, wrong smile that didn't reach his eyes, or maybe couldn't, because there was nothing behind them to reach. "Just practicing," Collins whispered. Then his head jerked. His body stiffened. Every muscle froze mid-movement, like someone had hit pause. He stood there, unmoving. Unbreathing. A mannequin wearing Collins' skin. I didn't wait for whatever came next. I jumped into the cruiser, slammed the lock down, and floored it. The headlights carved through the fog, revealing the familiar streets of Ashbrook. Except nothing felt familiar anymore. Houses leaned at angles that defied architecture. Streetlights flicked on and off in perfect rhythm with my heartbeat. Every window I passed seemed to hold a silhouette standing perfectly still. Watching. When I turned onto Maple, I saw 3 people standing in the middle of the road. They weren't doing anything. They weren't reacting. They were just facing me.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
One was Mrs. Dorsey, the old librarian. One was Mr. Pembroke, the hardware store owner. The third was a kid I didn't recognize. All of them standing shoulder to shoulder. All wearing the same frozen smile Beckett had worn. All with bleeding ears. I swerved around them and sped toward City Hall. I didn't know why, maybe instinct, maybe desperation, but something told me if there were answers anywhere, they'd be there. I parked crookedly in front of the building and sprinted up the steps. The front doors were slightly open. Inside, the lobby lights were flickering in a strange pattern, 3 blinks, pause, 1 blink, pause, 3 blinks. Morse code. SOS. But I couldn't tell if it was a warning for me, or a trap meant to lure me deeper. I moved slowly down the hall, gun raised. The walls seemed too close. The air smelled like dust and something else, something metallic. I reached the mayor's office. The door was ajar. "Mayor?" I called, pushing it open. He was there. Sitting at his desk. Back straight. Hands folded. Eyes open. Staring at nothing. Dead. But it wasn't the stillness that told me he was gone, it was the symbol carved into his forehead. The wheel. 8 spokes radiating outward, cut deep enough to expose bone. But what made me stagger back was what was on the wall behind him. Dozens, no, hundreds, of photos were pinned there. All connected with red string. Faces of townsfolk. Dates. Locations. Notes scribbled in frantic handwriting. But one thing stood out. At the very center of the web of photos. At the focal point. Was a picture of me. A picture taken from behind. At my cruiser. Hours earlier. When I thought I was alone. Above it, written in red marker. The one who saw. Beneath it. Turn 5 begins with him. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. My pulse roared in my ears. Turn 5. What were the turns? How many were left? What was I becoming? Behind me, a whisper slid through the office like smoke. You've been chosen, Hale. I spun. The sheriff stood in the dew. But his body. God. His body was wrong, twisted, elongated, bent in places no bones should bend. And behind him were dozens of townspeople. All smiling. All staring. All whispering the same phrase in perfectly synchronized breaths. Turn. 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 I backed against the mayor's desk, cornered. Hale, the sheriff creature said softly, you can't stop it. He leaned forward, neck bending like wet clay. You can only join. The sheriff creature took a step toward me. The floorboards bowed under his weight, not because he was heavy, but because he didn't move like something that obeyed gravity. His limbs dragged behind him as if reluctant to follow, stretching a moment late, like shadows that lagged behind the body casting them. Hale, he whispered again, the will has watched you since the moment you entered this place. The townspeople behind him parted slowly, shifting in perfect unison. Their smiles remained frozen, but their eyes were pleading. I realized then that they weren't smiling because they wanted to. They were smiling because something inside them forced it. I held the gun out in front of me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely keep the barrel still. Stay back, I warned. This ends now. The sheriff laughed. It was a dry, papery sound, like dead leaves grinding under footsteps. You still believe you're separate, he said. You still believe you're outside the wheel. He reached into the crowd. I thought he was going to grab someone, but instead he beckoned with a single finger. And the girl stepped forward. The same girl from the fog. The caller. Her pajamas were stained black. Her eyes were still bottomless pits. But her face had changed. She looked scared. Like a child again. Hale, she whispered. Her voice wasn't layered this time. It sounded human. Don't let them do it. The sheriff slammed a hand onto her shoulder. Her body contorted like a marionette yanked in 3 directions, and she screamed, not with one voice, but with dozens. That broke me. I squeezed the trigger. The bullet ripped into the sheriff's forehead. His head jerked back. A spray of thick, black fluid hit the wall behind him. For a moment, just a moment, he stood still. Then he laughed again. The wound didn't bleed. It absorbed the bullet like ink soaking into a sponge. You don't understand the shape of things, he whispered. But you will. He flicked his wrist. The townspeople surged forward all at once. Not running. Not lunging. Collapsing. They fell like marionettes with their strings cut, bodies crumpling to the floor, limbs twisting under them. For a heartbeat I thought they were dying. But then their bodies began to rise again. Only not upright. They crawled. On all fours. Backs bent the wrong way. Heads tilted at impossible angles. Their jaws hanging open like dislocated hinges. Crawling toward me. And whispering. Turn. 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 I kicked the mayor's desk backward, sending papers scattering, and dove toward the window. I didn't hesitate. I threw my shoulder into the glass. It shattered around me. Cold night air stabbed my lungs as I tumbled onto the grass outside City Hall. I staggered up, glass embedded in my arm, but I didn't stop. I ran for the cruiser. The fog was thicker now, spiraling, pulsing, as if the entire town breathed through it. Street lamps flickered violently. Houses blurred at the edges of vision. Reality bent like heat distortion. And behind me, crawling out through the broken window of City Hall, came the townspeople. Dozens of them. Their voices rising to a chant. Turn. 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 I reached the cruiser, yanked the door open. And stopped. Because the radio was on. Crackling. Not static this time. A voice. My own. Hale, the voice said, calm and measured, you can't run from this. You're already inside it. The sheriff's voice layered OV. Come to the center. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to know. But the words left my mouth anyway. What center? The fog parted, revealing the old grain silo on the western edge of town. Except it wasn't a silo anymore. It was glowing. Symbols spiraled up the metal walls, those same 8-spoked wheels carved into flesh and wood and now steel, burning with a sickly red light. The ground around it pulsed like a slow heartbeat. And I understood. This was never a town. Not in the way I thought. Ashbrook was a machine. A machine built around the turning. I didn't remember running. One moment I was at the cruiser, the next I was standing before the silo's massive, rusted doors. They slid open by themselves. Inside was a circular chamber. Candles lined the walls. All flickering. All breathing. In the center stood a wooden post, old, splintering, stained dark by generations of blood. And strapped to it was me. My breath caught. My vision blurred. It was me. Same clothes. Same badge. Same scar on my chin. Except my eyes were open. And I was smiling. The sheriff creature's voice filled the chamber. The turns require witnesses, it whispered. Each turn needs the one who saw to replace the one who watched before. Hale, you came at the wrong time. You were curious. Curious ones always become the next watcher. The little girl stepped forward, her eyes still hollow. I'm sorry, she whispered. The strapped version of me lifted its head. And spoke in my voice. It's okay. I waited a long time for me. My legs gave out. The chanting outside grew louder. Turn. 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 The sheriff loomed behind me, placing an impossibly long hand on my shoulder. Step forward, Hale. I shook my head. No. I won't join you. You already have, he whispered. You followed the caller. You entered the church. You saw the wheel. Every step you took was part of the path. My double smiled wider. Come on, he whispered. Take my place. I tried to scream. Come to the center. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to know. But the words left my mouth anyway. What center? The fog parted, revealing the old grain silo on the western edge of town. Except it wasn't a silo anymore. It was glowing. Symbols spiraled up the metal walls, those same 8-spoked wheels carved into flesh and wood and now steel, burning with a sickly red light. The ground around it pulsed like a slow heartbeat. And I understood. This was never a town. Not in the way I thought. Ashbrook was a machine. A machine built around the turning. I didn't remember running. One moment I was at the cruiser, the next I was standing before the silo's massive, rusted doors. They slid open by themselves. Inside was a circular chamber. Candles lined the walls. All flickering. All breathing. In the center stood a wooden post, old, splintering, stained dark by generations of blood. And strapped to it was me. My breath caught. My vision blurred. It was me. Same clothes. Same badge. Same scar on my chin. Except my eyes were open. And I was smiling. The sheriff creature's voice filled the chamber. The turns require witnesses, it whispered. Each turn needs the one who saw to replace the one who watched before. Hale, you came at the wrong time. You were curious. Curious ones always become the next watcher. The little girl stepped forward, her eyes still hollow. I'm sorry, she whispered. The strapped version of me lifted its head. And spoke in my voice. It's okay. I waited a long time for me. My legs gave out. The chanting outside grew louder. Turn. 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 The sheriff loomed behind me, placing an impossibly long hand on my shoulder. Step forward, Hale. I shook my head. No. I won't join you. You already have, he whispered. You followed the caller. You entered the church. You saw the wheel. Every step you took was part of the path. My double smiled wider. Come on, he whispered. Take my place. I tried to scream.
The Silent Screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories.